everyone, and welcome. This is your Frontier Opening Bell, Friday, the 23rd of September, and we're happy we all made it through to the weekend. Let's give you a snapshot of our trading day. As always, the Nigerian market looking for a breakout, broke to the downside on Thursday by roughly 0.5% as investors sold down shares of Boa Cement, strongly down about 6% in the industrial goods space. And Guinness Nigeria, which is Nigeria's second largest brewer, also saw a major downside on the share price. The shares of NGX Group, which is listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited itself, was also down on a Thursday ahead of its annual general meeting next week, September the 30th. Those are some of the headlines within the Nigeria space. The biggest volume transactions of the day, however, came from the banking sector, which escaped yesterday's rout on the Nigerian bourse by roughly 0.5%. So the BRVM finished off flattish in a manner of speaking, 0.01%. The Egyptian stock market finished Thursday, the last day of the trading week, by 23 basis points. In Nairobi, the market eked out 16 basis points, but the GSE fell roughly 0.6% on Thursday. That's the day that the SARB raised interest rates by 75 basis points to 6.25% despite inflation. That slowed down slightly in August to 7.6% from 7.8% in the month of July. Let's take that down and then roll up the East African top stories and the headlines as we go into the weekend. Kenyans will no longer be allowed to fly out of the country or travel out of the country without a new biometric passport. That will be effective in December. And the U.S. has overtaken Uganda as the top buyer of Kenyan goods. Kenya and Uganda are head-to-head as two of the biggest economies east of the continent in terms of trade and exports. And the federal government in Nairobi, as well as the Kwale Sugar Mills, are in talks over that tender row worth about 32 billion shillings, while the KCB Group, one of the biggest banking group in Kenya, says it's acquired Trust Merchant Bank in DR Congo. DRC is the new playground for economic, financial, and investment and finance activities across the African continent, sub-Saharan Africa, in particular between East Africa and Central African Republic. Already, Equity Bank has already taken a front seat in DR Congo under President Tshisekedi. And of course, we've got Tanzanian shillings, according to the weekly report from Asa Finance, a non-banking financial transactions and broker on the continent, reporting that Tanzanian shillings is recovering, and that is positive news for the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, where we've seen the net inflows of about 7.2 billion shillings in the third quarter ending next week, against an outflow of about 2 billion shillings in the second quarter ended June. Some good news there for the currency and the stock market, equity market, on the back of what President Hassan Suluhu is doing on the ground. So let's move on to West Africa. Nigeria's central bank will be deciding on interest rates next week, 26th and 27th. On 27th, the central bank will make its next decision. The expectation is that the Godwin Emefiele-led Monetary Policy Committee and central bank will be taking interest rate a little bit higher, at least by 50 basis points. That's what some expectations are. In the meantime, Nigeria's Ibukun Awosika, former chairman of First Bank of Nigeria, has now been appointed on the Binance Global Advisory Board, and we say congratulations. And Cameroon has become the 36th member state of the African Finance Corporation, which is headquartered in Lagos, but owned by member states across the African continent. The idea of setting up the EFC about 15 years ago was to provide that window to support infrastructure financing across the continent, raising local and global debt, as well as other sources of finance to support the critical infrastructure gap that exists in sub-Saharan Africa. And EFC has been doing that for more than a decade. We say congratulations to Cameroon as well. In the meantime, the Bank of Ghana are in bed with the authorities, says they've arrested more than 70 illegal FX dealers in the country to help save the Naira. The activities of the illegal FX traders were said to be inimical to the stability of the Ghanaian currency, that's the cedi. And Cote d'Ivoire's Treasury says it's raised about 65.7 billion CFA franc from the West African Monetary Union market. In Southern Africa, of course, the interest rate yesterday by the SARB under Leseja Kagyango was the biggest story. He gave inflation outlook as well as what the trend will be for interest rates, as well as wage prices and the effect of food prices, crisis in Ukraine and all that in that very robust post-MPC monetary policy meeting yesterday. At least 2 members voted for 100 basis points hike, while 3 members voted in favor of 75, and 75 took the day. Some margin as the US FOMC decided 3 days ago. South Africa Authority, Ramaphosa's administration, and Eskom have signed off on 3 wind farm projects worth about 11 billion rand. The whole idea is to support prop up Eskom's very disappointing energy supply, which has seen very critical load shedding in recent weeks and months. And Mozambique is set to export its first LNG out of that $20 billion ENI project in the northern part of the country. And a US-based company says it's going to supply about 15 million metric tons of fertilizers to Africa, and in particular, countries such as Malawi, where we've seen major problem. Malawi is a rich agro-based economy, but again, there's been various pressure on fertilizer due to the supply issues coming through from Russia, which is one of the world's largest fertilizer producer. OCP and others in Morocco are trying to fill the void, but the gap is so much for African countries where the number of fertilizer producing companies are in very short supply. If you take North Africa out of it, and with Dangote fertilizer just came on stream a few months ago in Nigeria. And Zambia's President Chilema, the Kwacha is rallying about 18.6% since the year started. More recently, however, on the back of the talks going on between the creditors, being midwifed by the IMF and a few others such as China and South Africa also are in the mix. That's a bit of a breather for the country. But of course, the news about the non-payment of September coupon to bondholders, private sector bondholders, was not so much of a good news. But we'll take all that on board and see what lies ahead, according to Asa Finance Weekly report, which was released on Thursday. Let's finish it up in North Africa. Of course, you know, Friday is the start of the weekend in Egypt, by the way, so the markets are closed today. We're looking at Egypt's central bank interest rate decision next week, as well as Ghana, as well as Nigeria, and Kenya as well. All and more on that will be on the radar. And as we keep that in mind, we'll be taking them as they come on a daily basis. Morocco's inflation, however, came in at 8% in the month of August, while the country holds Africa's 3rd largest luxury market with about $125 billion in private wealth. That's according to a new report which was released. It goes between the top 3 between South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria. And of course, the Bank of Africa, Mahawk, which is listed on the Casablanca Stock Exchange, says it raises capital by 31.6 million dirhams. And Renault Mahawk, which is an auto company, and the Suez says they've signed a new waste management partnership, which will help the automobile company get a whole lot better in terms of its waste management and across its production lines and all that. That deal has been signed together, and that will help the Suez Canal be able to pick up some of those wastes and move them all through the canal. And that's some of the news we've got for you this Friday. Now, enjoy your weekend, everyone, and I'll see you at the other side. Bye for now.